He's a New Jersey-based drone pilot. Joining us today on the Drone Dish, Noel Thomas. Noel, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you on AirVuz.
Absolutely. And you've been uploading your videos to AirVuz for a couple of years now. I'm curious how you got started in drones and kind of how you first started flying.
Yeah, good question. So it's a funny story. I actually once bought a very cheap small drone in the mall about 5 years ago. And it was one of those, pocket ones when things weren't very advanced. And after my second flight, it went up and it never came back. And rather than just, close down and say, that's it, for me, I got very frustrated and said, I want to learn more about these and to find out if there's better technology, better systems where you can actually recover these things and not lose them so easily. And that's when I found out about DJI at the time. And I think it was the Phantom 2 that they had. And that really intrigued me, just the whole idea of being able to pilot an aircraft system remotely, because ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a pilot. In fact, I wanted to go to the Air Force, but my eyesight was so bad that that wasn't going to work out. So when I saw this technology and the ability to do this, it really made me feel like my dream could come true in a sense. They're flying these UAVs. But when I first started, I was solely interested in just the joy of flight, the excitement of learning how to fly, and didn't think about the photography aspect. That was more of like just, something that came along with it to play around with. But after flying for a year, that was when I really decided, okay, it's time to learn the photography, and that's like a whole different world, and I'm still learning ever since.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff you shoot, you do some cityscapes and skyline shots. You also do some kind of nature scenes, and I know you've traveled to quite a few different places. Do either of those, do you prefer one or the other, or what's kind of your favorite thing to shoot right now?
Yeah, for me, it feels like I go back and forth. If I work on cityscapes and do a particular city, I feel like then after that, I want to go back to something in nature. So for me, it's a balance of both. I think I definitely appreciate both of those types of scenes, and there's different challenges and different things to consider for each of those.
You've been doing a lot of hyperlapses lately. I think you're using the Mavic 2 Pro, correct me if I'm wrong, but what do you enjoy about that and doing that type of filming?
Sure, yeah, I do use the Mavic 2 Pro a lot now. I think with the new 1-inch sensor that they have and some of the other features, it's really brought it very close to, say, the Phantom 4 Pro. And the portability, as you can imagine, is really key. The ability to be able to carry that around with you, more easily go on hiking trips and not draw attention as you might with some of the bigger units. Yeah, I really like using that. And the hyperlapses, what I really like is the fact that they allow you to do the hyperlapse now on the Mavic 2 Pro with a shorter time interval between each photo.
Now, as far as your approach on when you're kind of thinking what you want to film in the hyperlapse mode, do you kind of strategize, or what's kind of the mindset and the process of picking where you're going to do those hyperlapses?
Yeah, always try to pick a scene where there's quite a bit of movement. It doesn't necessarily need to be people or cars. It could be clouds. So particularly with nature scenes, that's what I tend to focus on. If you can go to a scene where you know that there's cloud movement, it could be on top of mountains, it could be over the ocean. You don't want to pick a scene where the clouds are not moving, there's no atmosphere activity, and if you're far away from objects and people, you're not going to capture much in a time lapse or hyperlapse. The other benefit, though, of doing the time lapse or the hyperlapse actually too, is that when you do a hyperlapse, you're using individual photos to create a video, and if you're doing night shots in particular, if you think about if you're comparing taking a video of night versus a hyperlapse of night, a video at night, you're very limited in terms of the data and the information you can capture. But if you do a hyperlapse at night, you can take individual shots where you set a long exposure, which can be done on the drone given the stability of the gimbal with the gimbal. And that's really the benefit. If you can do a hyperlapse at night, you can get such great quality photos. I would say if you're doing a hyperlapse at night, you don't even need to do it to capture motion, just do it to get the better quality images.
Yeah, those are great tips. I myself have not really dabbled too much in that. I fly the Phantom 4, so it's a little more tedious to do that. And I know you've been doing these hyperlapses since before the Mavic too, so those are great tips. I appreciate you sharing them. You mentioned taking some night shots. From a video and photo standpoint, your shots always seem so vibrant. Is that, how much of that is the camera settings you're choosing, and how much of that is the editing in post?
It's both. A great question. Yeah, so in terms of the camera settings during the shoot, you need to make sure that you set your settings to manual. So you want a low ISO, as low as you can get it, and then you want to set the shutter speed to be as long as possible. Particularly for night shots, you want the ability to be able to go afterwards and correct all the individual settings using Lightroom or other softwares where you can adjust raw photos. The challenge is with hyperlapse, if you're too close to objects, you might not be able to stabilize it. So I'd recommend, if you're doing a hyperlapse of a city, in particular with buildings and where you have objects in the foreground and the background, try to keep a good safe distance from everything. Don't get too close because it could create wobbling that the stabilizers can't handle.
Yeah, well, last question for you, Noel. You've flown in some pretty cool places, some cities, some nature spots around the world. Where's been your favorite spot that you've had your drone flying?
For me, my two favorite places are Bermuda and also Hawaii. Just Hawaii collectively, all the islands. I've been to Hawaii a number of times and seen the different islands, and it's one of the few places I've seen where you just have so much variety of different landscapes. You can get the ocean, the mountains, there's waterfalls that allow the opportunity to create long exposure photographs. So there's just so many, creative aspects, things that you can capture there. And in Bermuda, for me, the thing I love about Bermuda is that it's very calm there, very quiet, and there's so many different colors of blue in the water. It creates a nice opportunity to use those polarizers to try to get the deep blues and see into the water there. And also the landscape in Bermuda is unique in that not only do you have the beautiful water and the beaches, but it has scattered across the landscape different rocks and cliffs. So that makes it unique, I think, and the clouds there as well.
Yeah, a trip to Bermuda or Hawaii sounds good right about now in the middle of winter. It's got me daydreaming about booking a trip and bringing my drone. But Noel, thank you so much for joining us today on the Drone Dish. I've learned a lot just from talking to you today, and I hope everybody else out there did, and they go check out your work.
Yeah, thank you so much.